In the World Trade Center disaster, many people who were used to following the rules died because they did what they were told by authority figures. An employee of the Aon Insurance Company on the 93rd floor of the South Tower had begun his escape, but returned to the office after the security guards made a general announcement that the building was safe and that people should stay inside until they were told to leave. Before he died, he spoke to his father on the phone. "Why did I listen to them? I shouldn't have." Another man, an employee of Fuji Bank, actually reached the ground floor lobby, only to be sent back in by a security guard. A third worker called a family member and recorded a final message on the answering machine. "I can't go anywhere because they told us not to move. I have to wait for the firefighters." Perhaps some of these people failed to use, or worse, even lacked access to any critical thinking skills. Some merely stood by, did what they were told to do, and were not able to think twice about it. This could be the future of America. We can already see the result of a lack of critical thinking in today's society. The students of today are the leaders of tomorrow. What will happen if our leaders don't know how to think or act in critical situations? Today's high school students are performing poorly on simple logical reasoning tests. In fact, only a fraction of graduating high school seniors, 6%, can make informed, critical judgments about written tests. Only 15% of 12th graders demonstrate the proficiency to write well-organized essays that consist of clear arguments. Our students today are falling behind. The current school systems emphasize preparing students to take high-stakes tests and then simply move on to the next set of tests, and so forth, until graduation. Data in, data out, without true retention. Students today just come to class, open their notebook, and start copying down whatever the teachers write. Most students only live on the recall level, using whatever it takes to get through the next test. Once the test is over, all the memorized information is usually forgotten and not revisited. They move on to the next set of information needed to get through the next test. No deep thinking is taking place.
So what is critical thinking? Critical thinking is the intellectual and mental process by which an individual successfully conceptualizes, analyzes, synthesizes, evaluates, and/or applies information in order to formulate judgments, conclusions, or answers. This information can be gathered by observation, experience, reflection, reasoning, or communication. Critical thinking is well-founded judgment and hence utilizes appropriate evaluative standards in the attempt to determine the true worth, merit, or value of something. In short, critical thinking is analyzing an idea and applying good judgment and reason to form a conclusion.
But many of you may think that critical thinking is being taught today, and it is, just not in the most effective way. In schools today, critical thinking is taught by students reading through their textbook and then completing the section called critical thinking, usually found at the end of the chapter. Other methods include written assignments, exam questions, in-class discussion and debate, group projects, and reading assignments. But are these methods actually effective? It has never actually been tested, and there is no evidence that any of this actually helps improve critical thinking skills. Professor Ellen M. Coder from Georgia Southwestern State University did a study on her psychology class to evaluate the use of critical thinking exercises in textbooks. Unfortunately, the results were inconclusive, but the conclusion was drawn that even if these activities did not enforce critical thinking skills, they were building on skills such as reading that were still useful and thus not a waste of time. It was found, however, that many textbooks' critical thinking sections have no correlation between the current material and critical thinking.
Over the years, there have been many solutions that have been proposed. It has been proposed at many high schools that they should start working with higher education to ensure the students are prepared to enter college. Many solutions consist of changing the teacher's behavior towards the class. Teachers will be the prime example for their class. A few examples of this solution are teaching styles that promote inquiry, such as set up scenarios for analysis and having students compare and contrast movement ideas. Teachers would revise their instructional objectives, adding in analysis, pattern recognition, metacognition, and evaluation into lesson plans. Teachers would encourage more group reading and discussion to build critical thinking and reading skills because they will be following a reading to learn curriculum in college.
However, solutions like these have been tried over the years and have found little to no results. We believe that the best solution lies within the students. Critical thinking is a lifetime commitment of analyzing and upgrading our mental maps and governing body of rules. The earlier we as people learn to do it, the better we will be at it. It will enhance all stages of our development because we will be more responsible and less likely to get off track. Therefore, we must begin at all levels of learning, doing exercises that challenge us to think about our thinking, to consider our governing rules and reasons. Children are naturally curious. They want to know why. We must help them by doing activities to encourage them in considering the why. Critical thinking is a skill that can be developed through practice and application. Our ultimate solution would be to promote application to the things being taught. This would consist of things such as group work, projects, presentations, and going out into the field of study and actually applying knowledge. This would open up opportunities for students to think beyond the recall level and encourage them to perform their actions and not just describe it. Some schools have started integrating more student-involved projects. Many schools have started doing robotics programs so that students can apply higher-level thinking in real-life situations and problems. Other schools have students go and learn how to do the skill out in the field instead of reading about it in a textbook. Presentations would require doing research, and students would have to answer questions that do not necessarily have one right or wrong answer. Students would learn to speak and think for themselves. They would have to back up their own opinions on their own without the help of the teacher. They would also have to make correct judgments on the things they would be reading and know what is reliable and what is not. There's a school out there that has a similar method to the one we've shared, and it works. Alexander Neal had a school that most people would see as a school of freedom. His school had no curriculum, no set time, no classes, and no tests. Most people would think that students that went there would never learn anything and would just play around all day. That is not true. His school has students graduating at high school level at ages of 15 and 16, ready for college. The school has teachers waiting in their rooms, and students come and want to learn. The teacher teaches them anything they want to learn, and that's that. Alexander believes that as natural children, we are creative, curious, and have questions. Eventually, the student knows everything they need to know because they wanted to know why. They learned purely from asking questions and learned from learning how to find the answer. We all have the creativity and the start of critical thinking we need as children. We just need teachers to help that skill grow and improve just like any other skill we learn. Our solution taps into a student's natural desire to learn, and through this method, critical thinking would become part of the students' lives. This method would allow students to think critically while applying creativity and also build on other skills such as teamwork. Students would also need to learn to use critical thinking in order to pass their classes. There would be no way for students to simply memorize information and pass the next test. Rather, they would have to learn to think deeply for themselves.
Critical thinking is a very important skill that unfortunately many students are falling short on. These upcoming students are the future of our country. They are the future leaders, voters, and workers of America. What will come if the leaders of the future are lacking in critical thinking skills? We do not want another disaster like what happened with the World Trade Center. We need a future that knows how to think and make decisions for themselves, instead of waiting to be told what to do by authorities, and our solution will make this happen.